What up, people? Welcome to another episode of Social Moments. So, Ghana's biggest YouTuber or travel vlogger, Wode has found himself in a situation these few days for a couple of things. One, he went to Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe seems to be particularly pissed at him because he came to their country and had conversation with people and projected the positivities of their country, which they claim he's actually, what's the word? Which they claim is sort of condescending, and he took money from their big men to do their bidding, which I'm gonna stay away from because I have no idea what that is about. But he's in a pickle for one other thing, which is he got on Twitter and made a tweet about colonialism and attributed as speaking different languages, the language division, to colonialism. And people had words for him. So in a tweet, he says, colonization really did harm to Africans. 3 young Africans on the same dinner table, but we couldn't communicate because I speak English and both speaks French and Portuguese respectively. And people were ready to let him know he was wrong. Look, colonization is one of the, if not the worst thing to ever happen to this continent. It's so terrible that it's been decades since it was over, and still till this day there are still some repercussions we are dealing with. I mean, generational trauma, and there's new colonialism, which like you got francophone countries even still paying taxes to France and a lot of rubbish things. So colonization was terrible, but one of the things it's not responsible for is the language division. There's a lot of things you can chalk up on colonization. Language division isn't one of them because we were already divided by languages before the colonizers got here. Some people even argue that one of the reasons that made it very easy for the colonizers to actually get away with whatever they wanted to do was because of the language barrier, which I sort of agree, because think about this, even before the colonizers came and us fighting each other tribally and taking over each other, do you actually think it would have happened if we spoke the same language? I do not think so. Like, bear with me with this analogy. Like if one, whoever settled here in Ghana first, I don't know, my history is a little blemished. But whoever it was who got here first, the Guans, I think, and whoever came after them, let's say the Asantes came and the Guans were already here, and the commotion was about to start, they were about to get into, Meku, or lie. Bear with me, I know this is stupid, but I don't. Like, hey, Meku, your mother. Wait, yeah? Your mother is in Chi. Like, hey, Meku, mommy, and all of that. Wait a minute. Okay, Chi. I'm also okay, Chi. Hey, and they say, you no more. Charlie, I'm Bahadabe. Yabahabe, Afibe, and what you could do. Chalafi ni yansu yebo anke pe baby eltena o sa asase na down yen hye dan fanya ade bia mbetumi akotena ho. I don't know, it may sound like far-fetched, but I actually believe that would have happened. And I'll give you a classic example that you can relate to. I mean, this one is far-fetched, so you might not think you can relate to it, but a very similar one. Like even today, I remember back in school, like if I did talk with my Muslim friends and all of a sudden they changed the language to Hausa, I took offense to it, wouldn't you? Because all of a sudden, what would you think? They are talking about me. And they might not have necessarily be talking about me. Maybe somebody's mother sent somebody to give information to somebody, and that information didn't necessarily concern me, and them using a different language was a way, so I do not care to hear whatever it was they were saying. Maybe it wasn't necessarily a gossip about me. And if that message was delivered in Chi, that I speak and I understand, I wouldn't have taken an offense to it. And I will know that, concern me. See? And I'm sure if you've been in a situation like that, you understand what I'm talking about. So the barrier in languages has existed for a very long time, even before colonizers got here. And people do not want to see this point, but colonization again, fucked up. It did a lot of terrible shit. That still goes on till now. But if there was like a glimpse, a silver lining, just a tiny, like a needle hole, the hole in a needle that you thread, that was in colonization, that would be like language unification. Because of these languages, international languages, I get to sit here. My videos are watched by people from Nigeria, South Africa, Senegal. I've seen this and the analytics, all kinds of different countries in it. All of these countries wouldn't exist. All of this viewership wouldn't exist if I was sitting here and speaking Twi. Even in Ghana, not everybody would have been able to understand me. Only Ashantis and people who speak and understand Twi would have been able to watch and understand me. But here is the case where we all get to communicate with each other because of the diverse languages or the unification of languages, which is presented by this colonizers' languages, I guess. But I also understand Wode Maya's point. His point was these languages, as in the colonizers' languages, English, the French, and the Portuguese. He listed that different African countries speak is what he was saying caused the division. But he was saying has caused the division. But what he forgot was that we were speaking different languages, and people pointed it out, and he also came back with rebuttals like travel and see. There are similar languages, and his photographer or somebody speaks a different language but was able to communicate in a different language. I'm gonna find the tweet and put it up at the screen so you can read. But basically, was saying his photographer or somebody close to him speaks a different language but was able to communicate with a different language to a different person because they were very similar. Which brings me to the point of Chi, Fante, Ekuapem, Nzema, and all of those words. Like I watch a Freddie Mayweather, who is Ivorian, and Nzema Ivorian, and Nzema in Ghana and Nzema in Ivory Coast is the same language. They are very similar to Akan or Chi. If I listen to his songs, even though I don't speak Nzema, some of the words I can understand. Heck, it was even adulthood very recently that I found out that it was actually Nzema. When I was growing up, when his songs were being played in Ghana and all of that, I actually thought it was Ghanaian with a different dialect or accent. I had no idea he was Ivorian, and I had no idea some Nzema exists out of Ghana in Ivory Coast. But that happened because of colonization, because of division, which is one of Wode Maya's point, I guess, was trying to make. But again, one thing with language similarities is that even though Nzema and all those languages are similar to Twi, I can hear one or two words being spoken in it, I do not really understand it. Like if I meet somebody who has a very thick Fanti accent, it's gonna take me a couple of seconds to register and comprehend what he's saying to me. But me, because even though Fante and Twi is like this, if you haven't really been around a lot of Fantes, it takes you a couple of seconds to register and comprehend. Meanwhile, as opposed to if the person was speaking Twi, it would take me milliseconds to understand what they are saying. So, similar doesn't mean the same, and the language division existed even before colonizers came. I think if you want to blame somebody for that, that would be that. If you're a believer, that would be God and the Tower of Babel, and you already know the story. I won't get into that. So people came. I mean, this was pretty much mostly like respectful with people dialogues. People were just trying to tell him, he's wrong. But your man too was like persistent. Even people have suggested he should delete the tweet, which I disagree because I think this is like an opportunity to educate, to learn. There's a lot of information I found out about this under these tweets and the quoted tweets that I had no idea prior. For example, one, Farax at Bra says, crying cause there's like 7,000 languages in Africa. You wouldn't be understanding each other anyway, like 7,000 languages. That's excessive. Maku 7,000. Did you know this? I did not know this. 7,000 languages in Africa. I don't think that, like, if you take African aside, the other continents, and combine all their languages, it will even reach, well, I'm assuming, so, you know, I stand to correct it, it will reach 7,000. And in Ghana alone, there's a lot of languages. I also found out in Nigeria, there's like 250 plus languages. Imagine that. AB Adolei 1 says, you thought everybody in Africa was speaking Lingala before European came? And Ekwefri says, I speak Chi because that is the language of my tribe. I can't communicate in Ewe or Dagomba. Even similar languages like Nzema, Ahanta, or Sehui are impossible to understand. These languages predate colonialism. Statement is not factually accurate. Very respectfully said. And Solomon says, why didn't you all ditch English, French, and Portuguese and speak in Afrikaans? How did colonization stop you from speaking your native languages at the dinner table? At Me Report says, this is disappointing, sad, but true, and I quote, each time I want to fight for African rights, I use only one hand because the other one is busy fighting Africans who are fighting me. Benjamin Burumbo. My guy, what has this got to do with anything? See, I hate people like this. They are called, what are they called? The yes men. Like, he made a factually wrong statement, and people are simply educating. I haven't come across a lot of disrespectful comments. Most I've come across was just from like Zimbabweans, which I found out is actually about a different issue, which I said I'm not going to talk about because I have no idea or facts about it. But this, most people responding to him are actually keeping it respectful and are just educating. Then you get people like this who are trying to show like they love him or care for him more than everybody with this rubbish about, I want to fight for African rights. I only use one hand because the other one is busy fighting Africans. Now I really like how. Who is fighting him? Now really, who is fighting him? People, he just posted something and people are giving their tweet. People are just merely disagreeing. How is this a fight? Or using one hand to fight for African rights. You can fight for Africa, you can travel vlog. You can try to unite Africa. You can try to show the positive side of Africa and still get on Twitter and make a tweet. That's not factual. He's human. He makes mistakes. We all do. And people are allowed to come in and say, bro, this is wrong. They don't mean they are fighting him or he's using one hand to fight off African. This is not necessary. Eh? Kojo Bank says, I completely agree with you. I used to speak Ewe, Fante, Chiga, French, Swahili, and many languages before colonization, but now I don't even understand Chi. So, because the comedians too go come through. We can't do this without them. Proud United fan says, I like your craft, but these tweets look like reckless driving. Philip Sowa Utu says, anyway, we live in the same country, but can't still communicate among ourselves because we speak different local dialects. Mr. Brown says, even at Kwaba at the airport, different tribes are fighting over why their language wasn't used instead of Chi. How is colonization / the Berlin Conference responsible for the facts that we have about 2,000 native languages in Africa, with about half of that sounding nothing like the other? Yeah, the Berlin Conference this person is mentioning is because when people try to correct Wode, he came with some rebuttals about the Berlin Conference, which they caused the division and all of that, and telling people to travel and see and all of that. But apparently, there are people fighting over Akwaba at the airport because it's not in their language. See, I had no clue this even existed. Which brings me back to my point earlier, if you've been watching this video to this point, about why we don't have our own languages representing us as a national language and using English, because there will be outcry that why isn't it my language, or why isn't it that other language? This language fight, we are our own, what is the word? We are our own enemies. We were fighting because we spoke different languages, divisions, even before the colonizers got here. Also, if you fight because there's a kwaba at the airport, they're not in your language, seriously, it's not that big of a deal. There's stadium in Kumasi, Babayara, Kumasi Sports Stadium. The biggest stadium in Kumasi is named Babayara. And guess what? Babayara is not from Kumasi. He's not an Ashanti. It's not that. Cause division and disagreement and all of that. That's how some of you caused Ohinijan's name to be removed from Accra Sports Stadium, because it wasn't a Ga name, and now it's just called Accra Sports Stadium. Danonka says, sure, without colonization, Africa would have been probably a country and not continent. So there would have been the need for universal common language, any of the African languages, to aid communication and trade. Well, it wouldn't have been like a continent, and I don't know if it would have been a country either, one country either. I don't think that would have happened either. But I do believe they did trade nonetheless, even though there wasn't one particular language that they traded in. I still think they traded. Most of the trading back in the day was the barter system, and that, as I've learned, didn't necessarily need to deal with like speaking a language. There's something called haggling. It doesn't even sometimes use a lot of dialogue to communicate. There was a video, some Asian video I came across not long ago. I don't think if I still have it. They were like using their hand, not necessarily sign language, but there wasn't a lot of talking, and they were still trading. So I still believe, even though they didn't communicate in one single language, they still traded among themselves using one way or the other, not necessarily a spoken language, if that makes sense. Salim says, okay, let's use Nigeria as a case study. Imagine choosing one out of 250 languages, Jesus, as the official language. Would the Igbos accept Fulfulde or the Yoruba accept Jonkun? You see how this is a recipe for disaster? No, European language was a necessary compromise, and that's that. And I don't think I even need to explain this one, because I just literally made that point about using one of our languages to be our national language. So, in conclusion, I think this was like an oversight. We all make mistakes, even though he was wrong about this. It also afforded us the opportunity to learn about a lot of things, like being 7,000 languages in Africa. I wouldn't have spent a second of my day to go on Google to look this up. Apparently, there are 250 languages in Nigeria, and all other information and knowledge are again under this thread. So, again, this was an opportunity for all of us to learn, be using one hand to fight Africans and fight for their rights, or whatever that one guy said. But leave a comment, leave a like, subscribe, let me know how you feel about this. Catch you later.